There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Had a couple little quick glitches and wrong screen popped through. So we are set to go right now. Yeah, hang on just a second here. We're just trying to get everything fixed up a little bit better here. Hang on one second. That ought to do it. Sorry about that. I was trying to get some Christmas music and stuff in the background, but that didn't work out so good on the last minute. I need to set some of this up ahead of time. Sorry about that, folks. We should be good to go at this point. Everything looks good on my end. Been a real busy week here. We've got a storm coming in, as I'm sure many of you do. I've had several people reach out to me about that as well. So I know that there are some storm-related issues going on this week. Sales-wise, before we get in the topic, sales-wise, I've heard mixed results. Some people are up, some people are down. I don't have any consensus. I think it really depends on, just like the typical thing, what you sell. We're going to go into some of the easiest ways we've boosted our sales. That is going to be the topic today. And it's not just me who's done these same exact things. I could give you a whole bunch of people who've had the exact same results we're going to talk about with sales in general. I sell in multi-platforms. So take that in mind when we talk and stuff. I have multiple stores on several different platforms, including eBay. So I only share out a certain small percentage of what we sell and do. I do run zero quantity options, which means you won't see many of the items that we sold in a regular search result. Some of them will, some of them won't, but you won't be able to find a lot of them by looking at my solds or anything else like that, because they just don't show up. I want to just put that out there because I've had some people going off and trying to act like, I'm trying to deceive people and I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that. But if you know how eBay works, you who have been on for a while know exactly what I'm talking about. If you delete an item that's on zero quantity before, a certain point, it won't show up in your solds because it never technically ended at all. Because my zeros, when an item sells, it still is active, it's still there, it's still searchable. Anyway, end of on that on here. But let's see who's in house right here real quick. Yeah, I know I'm always thrown off when the start doesn't go exactly the way I planned it. But hey, Artie, Mike, how are you doing this evening? Hopefully you're doing good, Mike. Relax and resell. I did see, somebody else even actually tagged me in that. I have run into things like that. The flea market that I went to, earlier this year, and I met Paperboy Dave, $1 Million Peddlers at. There was a couple of those there in one booth, and they're. I'm not saying it's the exact same thing you have, and I think some of the questions were on age and value. My biggest concern right off the bat would be shipping it. I would say you'd probably need to go UPS, if even that might not be the best option. Price-wise, I have seen, I know if you're not my Patreon, you're not going to know exactly what we're talking about here, but it's a giant anthropomorphic item here that she found. It's a real neat item. My guess is it's not super old. That would be my personal opinion. I don't think it's super old. If it is super old, it's been repaired and it's way too shiny. I do paper mache, bigger figures. I do a lot of stuff. I've done, hang on, I actually have something here that we did. If I can get it out without knocking down a whole bunch of stuff. So I do sculpts. I do paper mache figures. We've done paper mache, you name it, paper mache, I've done it. I've even done paper mache to look like metals and wood and all sorts of stuff. This is actually Santa. I don't have the best lighting on it, but this is one of the Santas I do. I mold everything. So that type of item, I've personally made stuff like that. No fooling or anything else like that. Average price at, say, a south of the border, the importer store there at the big bar in what's it, South Carolina, I think is what it is. They've had stuff like that there, and they run about $350. And that would be a fair estimate on what something like that would probably go for in the right genre with the right keywords, right pictures. That would be my personal opinion on something like that. I've sold stuff made out of paper mache, even nothing fancy. A lot of them aren't signed. They're made for decorations. They might be for like a corn festival or a farming event, or it might have been made for a float or something local, or there might be somebody local who does it. It might even be an import, of some sort. Look up like south of the border on something like that, but that would be my personal opinion. The 350 range, I'd probably price it for $5, and then go from there, truthfully. Again, I know everybody doesn't know what we're talking about here, but it's a really neat item. There's people that do that right now. I could give you the name of a few antique malls that literally have paper mache figures in it. We've done masks in paper mache. There's nothing at all wrong with. In fact, I have a Taiwan mask up here with a leather tongue. It's a real big, fancy hand-carved mask, but the paper mache does extremely well. My personal opinion. A lot of the early Victorian and like up to 1920s paper Christmas ornaments and stuff are basically a paper mache with what do you want to call it? Dresden gilt or silvered color on the top, and then maybe mica, which is ground up stone in it. Again, that's a nice piece. Title it very carefully. A nice picture that shows it with nothing in the background. A pure white background would be the best on something like that, because it would hopefully blend in with the rest of the page and stand out. It wouldn't like be boxed in. It would just be a floating object, and I think it would look good. It's a nice item, I have to say. It really is. If you want anything special on that, I'm going to be responding to everything tonight. I'll finish up. I've been answering emails on and off all day in Patreon. I've had a 20-minute here, 20-minute there, and I've been in and out today trying to get everything ready. I've got family members who aren't young anymore, and they needed to make sure they had food and all that stuff. If we get that snowstorm in here, it might be days before some folks can get out. So anyway, if you need anything else on that, I'll drop a note under there, under the post too, on that also. Hey, Stardust Memories, how are you doing this evening? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Always good to see you back in house. Mr. Lowe, how are you doing this evening? A winchback. Now here's something that I've gotten in discussions with on winchback. I've been selling postcards for 30 years, to be honest with you. I sell multiple postcards every single day of my life. I've sold probably tens of thousands, well, more than that. I would probably say we've sold 35 or 40,000 postcards online in the time we've been selling postcards. Postcards with like Winch or Raphael Tuck, as long as it's not just like a flower or something and it has something that's bright that I can zoom in on, I'll give them a shot. I always add the word winchback. With winchback, the argument that always comes back is, well, it doesn't say winch on the postcard. Every single winch postcard I've ever seen has the very same 3-barred cornered, or there's a secondary version. Actually, there's 3 versions of the winchback. One has like a little floral thing a little differently than the other one. I use the winchback for my own personal postcards that I design and I print myself. Just because Winch's back is renowned for being Winch. It's a company, John Winch, circa 1910 through the 14 era, in that time frame, maybe even earlier than 1910. I want to say 1907-ish. I usually list the name if it's anything that I can keyword well. And a lot of the cards that I am able to sell with Winch and stuff, and a lot of other people are just giving them away at $3, $4, $5. I don't have to have the money. For what somebody sells postcards $3, $4, $5 for, they're selling 3 times as much, doing 3 times as much work as I am to sell the one postcard for even more than that, $10, $15. It depends on your ploy with what you want to do with it. The zoom-ins on Winches, when there's something nice, even if, let's say, there's a Santa Claus and it only occupies a quarter of the card, that's what I'm showing as the blow-up, as the main image of the card for the gallery view, the main view that you would see it as you're sorting through to see what you're going to look at. Everybody else is listing in the big row, or if you do it 3 across, whichever search setup you have for eBay. I've had very good luck with Winchback. Just the fact that it's Winch, and I usually write Winchback or Winch in the title, close to the left side. Again, keywords are the biggest thing on that kind of thing. I don't mess with just floral, or any birthdays are the ones that always stay away from. Birthdays just don't sell unless there's something really neat. A birthday card with a jack-o'-lantern in it would sell, even though it's a birthday and doesn't say anything about Halloween, if it has something weird, a black cat that looks like a Halloween cat with green eyes or something. I've seen those. Just like greeting cards, same basic principle. You can sell those for the same basic reason if it's got a jack-o'-lantern in it. I sell magazines just because there's a jack-o'-lantern in them, on like Halloween issues, October issues. Even if the rest of the magazine doesn't sell, Halloween and Christmas issues of magazines, as long as they're with nice coloring, nice graphics, Christmas graphics. Because there's people that just collect Christmas magazines, believe it or not. I've run into a couple. It's not just one. There's a couple of them out there. There may be hundreds of them for all I know. Postcards, though, with like Raphael Tuck. Raphael Tuck, again, it depends on the series. If I had a choice for postcards, just specifically postcards, I would always take the Winch over the Tuck, unless the Tuck is fantasy or really a fancy looking card and really cheap. But on greeting cards and Victorian trade cards, there aren't any Winch obviously, but the Tuck Victorian trade cards and Christmas cards and Valentine's cards, they sell extremely well. We've sold Raphael Tuck Christmas cards, just not postcards, 1870s through 90s, 1905 era, like Christmas cards. 150, 250, 275, which is right there at the top of any Tuck item you will ever find on eBay. And those are routinely selling in those prices if you have the right ones. It's like De La Rue. Look up De La Rue Christmas cards if you want to hear a good name. De La Rue Christmas cards. I've sold a single De La Rue Christmas card about this big, not a postcard, a Christmas card about that big for almost $500. All because it was from a specific series of De La Rue. De La Rue made, it's almost like a trading card. The graphics are just incredible on De La Rue cards. They made playing cards. They made printed material posters, flyers, handbills, a bunch of stuff, but they made them, the quality is exceptional. It's like Mirth or something, or some of the Perth print houses. It's just fabulous. It's like the best Bavarian graphical card you can see. I mean, and it's always something really unique and vintage. The Christmas ones are usually the best that I'll do the most money in. So Tuck is great. It depends on what the product is itself. Again, anything plain, birthday cards aren't very good. Even New Year's cards aren't nearly as good as, say, a Valentine's card in my book, unless the New Year's cards show Father Time or a bunch of clock faces or something really unique or interesting. Embossing usually adds to the value at least a few bucks. I don't buy them for any more than $1 if I'm sourcing individual cards, which I usually don't do anymore these days. Most average, just Joe Schmo average Winch cards, $7 to $8 or somewhere in that range. If it's a decent card, the right age, and at least has something on it. And that's not bad when you buy 1,000 cards and you have a nickel or 10 cents in each card. It doesn't take much to make your money back on those. I have never, and I swear to everybody out there, I have never in my life lost anything, not a single solitary dime on a postcard purchase. We've been doing it for 30 years, so obviously we've been doing it for a long time, but I've never lost a dime on a postcard purchase, ever in my life. Even if I buy a whole bunch of them, sometimes I don't get money out of but a couple, but those couple are why I bought it, and I turn around and sell them there. Again, it depends. Type in Winch and Halloween. Type in Winch and Christmas on eBay. Type in Winch and Santa. Snowball fights are really hot right now. I think we've sold or had offers on almost every card that I've had in-house that has snowball or snowball fights on it. So that's like one of the hottest Christmas vintage paper items selling right now. Blue coat Santa, that's another term. When I've got a couple in house right now. I think some of those in the Patreon group that I showed have a couple blue coat or brown coat, if I'm not mistaken. Apples, candles, and a Christmas tree sell if it's on a Christmas card. Winch, or even not a winch. Winch will probably add to the value on that. Again, embossed. If it has mica on it, that usually ups the level just a few more dollars. When you bought a card, look into the history. I've spent some time. I've looked into the history of it. When you bought a card back then, a normal U.S. printed card might be a penny. And imported, embossed, mica or something might be 2 cents. So even back then, the cost was more expensive. It's like a Hallmark Christmas card versus, you know, the average Rite Aid card or something, whatever the case may be. That's the real difference on those. I've done extremely well with winches. I don't know how many I have up. I couldn't even tell you. I know on like Hip, I've got 26,000 listings on there now, and they're not all the same listings as I have on eBay either, because you can list straight to the site, and there's some items I don't put up on eBay anymore because it's always a hassle, and there's, you know, I don't want to get dinged for something that eBay has an issue with because it has a picture of a flag or something, or whatever the case may be. So there's certain things you can list on Hip and not have to worry about it. So anyway, again, hopefully that answers your question. I know I've kind of rambled around there. Again, if you wanted to post, I think I responded to that question in Patreon, if I'm not mistaken. If you wanted to post some photos, and if you need help with that, just let me know. You can. I have people. In fact, I'm going to get back to one right after the show, who share their Google Docs, and I can just look at the page, and if they don't want it public in Patreon public. Anyway, oh yeah, there's a video up I just put up on Patreon and on YouTube membership. It's up just before the show, so there's one more section just because I wanted to cover the 5 key types of tokens and stuff in those videos. So it's a 2-part, just tokens. That's it, and it's all in depth. And it's mid-range. It's what I truly found. Everything in that video are types of things that I've personally hauled out. You'll see what I'm talking about once you watch it, but they're all ones that are key. I have price guides for 3 of the categories that are shown in there personally. I own them because we mess with them so much. I love tokens. For those in Patreon and in membership, you've seen that token haul in the beginning of that series there too. So I had an offer on one of those tokens already. I mean, I share photos. A lot of stuff we sell these days, if it's higher end and I've been dealing with the people for 5 or 10 years, I just directly deal with some folks these days. So I can just send out an email or a text to some folks and, you know, get a response and sell it without having to worry about it. All I pay is the PayPal fees. 3.95 or whatever my business PayPal thing is, and I can drop a link for it. I don't have to worry, or I can just send them a bill, and that's usually what I do a lot of the time these days. So if you're not doing that, you know, you're missing out. One of the good things about centering in on like postcards, I've got probably 200,000 postcards in house. Literally, there's no way I could list them all, and it would take years. We've probably got 6,000 postcards maybe up. Again, I don't list anything under, say, $14 anymore at all, so I don't list any of the cheap postcards like other people. And I ship first class. I don't use eBay's envelope rate or anything else like that. You know, I'd rather stick to the people that are willing to pay it, and I'd buy the more expensive cards. Anything else goes in a lot these days. I don't mess with that $14 mark. Is really $14.99 is really where I'm not wasting my time, at least, because you can get up around 52 postcards listing them through eBay on your own an hour, and that's including your scan time. You could probably do a few more than that. I've almost made 60 in 1 hour of all from the same genre. I think they were all Christmas, where I only had to change a couple of words in the title, upload the photos, and even the prices I think were the same. So it just depends on how you set yourself up. Hopefully that answers that. I know I rambled again. Hey, Black Crystal Dice, how are you doing this evening? Mr. Loftus, how are you doing? How are you doing? Hopefully you're not going to get snowed in there either. The snow is coming. The snow is coming from what I stand. It's the temperature's dropping. I think it's about 32 degrees outside. It's supposed to get down to 4 tonight, and the rain that's coming down now is supposed to turn to sheets of ice covered with like 6 inches of snow by the end of the day. We've got all the cars situated. Everybody's filled up on gas and all that kind of stuff. Welcome, Kelly. Good to see you in house. Response to the winchback postcards. One topic specifically, yeah, like I said, birthday cards and winches don't sell. And there are a few exceptions. We've sold some birthday cards that were winches for $20 and $30, and to me, that's a win. To me, a $20 postcard sale is a win every time because I may have a nickel or less into it. So if you're buying them in bulk, and that's the only way I pretty much buy them, unless we're at a sale and they're asking like crazy prices, I might look through a few and pick out a couple ones that I know I can get. We've paid $50 for a single postcard in the past. I've paid more than that even, and I knew I was going to get my money back. Sometimes, again, it helps to have a clientele base that returns, because, again, I sell in a niche. And let's lead to the topic here. Easiest way to get more sales, and I'm talking about it without even telling you what we're talking about. Why do some people have good sales all the time? What I found out, and again, why I can send a picture of something and sell it before I even own it sometimes, just like I do with if you're doing FBA, you can add quantity to a listing you already have when you buy some more in the store and change it up, especially if you've got a way to drop it off, or you've got your Home Depot boxes ready and stuff. But anyway, sometimes I can add stuff without even owning it, or I can sell it before I technically buy it. I already have the buyer in hand. They're people I've dealt with for a while. How can I do that? How can you do stuff like that on eBay? Well, the best way is to center in on some niches. Center in on either niches or replenishable items. On like our Amazon, I've got 3 items that they sell all the time. I may not sell a ton of them, but the profit margins is insane, and the ones we sell make us a real good chunk of money. And we've been doing it for now, like, I don't know, 6 years, those same ones. That's a replenishable. I can constantly get them in, and they're constant sellers. I'm not selling 20 a day, but we're doing just fine on those. It would almost be enough for a single person to make a living on, almost. You know what I mean? The replenishables are great. Wholesale. I've given out some tips on wholesale. We have done wholesale. I even did private branding back in the day when that was more a thing 5-6 years ago. And those were all doable things. It's still kind of doable today. But the niche area is where we center a lot of our efforts in with niches. You have more chance on getting people to follow you and repeatedly come back. On a niche, if someone's buying one item and you happen to have 4,000, 10,000, in some areas we've got 15 and 20,000 in the same niche, there's a very high chance that they're going to see other items that you have that they'll buy, because again, they don't want to pay for the extra shipping to buy them one off. You give a discount. We give a break when someone buys multiple items. Usually they come back. Our return rate is horrendously high. I mean, it's really, really super high. We try to keep getting new items in those same niches so that those people keep coming back. Even if somebody else is selling the same items as us, they're not going to have anywhere near the quantity. They may have only one item, maybe 2 if you're lucky. We have people buy, like 200 and I think 33 or 34 cards. Now was our biggest sale. It was 234 or 3. I can't remember. I'm off by 1. I don't remember if it was 33 or 34. But 233, 34 items went to the same person in a multiple purchase. And those aren't, all in a lot. Those are 233 individual listed items that sold for a very good chunk of change. We've had people buy multiples, like $4,000 worth at one single sitting. There's a person in San Francisco who runs a art studio who's bought, I don't know, $20,000 from us in trade cards. Just those things. That's just one person. I never, ever, ever could do any of that. Never even knew it was a big thing. I never understood that part of the business, because we were just grabbing whatever we could in the stores. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the funnest thing to do. It's no fun the way I source anymore. I see a photo, I go check it out. I'm going to look at that one item, and then I'm coming back. I don't randomly do much unless we're just doing it for fun. So it's a lot more fun to do those random things, because you never know what you're going to find, but the odds around here are terrible. So I mean, it's just not doable. The niche part, though, is the key that's changed our business. Yeah, we sell things that maybe some other folks can't find, or they think they're oddball, or who the heck's going to want that, but that's part of the reason why we do so well in it. I've figured out what's common, what's not common in the niches we sell. And we got like 50 niches. So just because I don't show everything doesn't mean that we don't do a heck of a lot more than that. Niche-wise, I mean, there's a lot of different niches. I've got like 6 main niches that pretty much carry the majority, not a super majority, but a decent majority of what we do on our main store. Like buttons, for an example. $2,500 or so is what we're running in button sales a month. That's just button sales. That's just old shirt buttons that have already been listed. That, we list 50, 60, 100 extra new ones a week or so on average to keep up with the sales, so that way we're not going down in quantity. We're the number one volume, so I've got the biggest inventory of that on eBay. I don't know if we're the highest volume seller, but we're the biggest item, amount of persons with items on there. But again, pick a niche. Pick something as from your childhood. If you collected baseball cards or football cards as a kid, start looking into those for some potential money. If I was into that, if I was a sports person around here, I can pick that. Almost every sale has something sports related. And if I knew what the good stuff is versus the bad stuff, man, I could really rake out, because there aren't as many people around here to fight over. Tools, I wouldn't have a chance. All the old timers around here got every tool outlet, vintage tool outlets, scoped out. And, I just wouldn't want to cross and get into it with anybody, because I don't need all that aggravation. It's not worth the hassle, I guess, is the point. Niches are where we've improved it the most. And not just picking a niche, but making sure you understand and can get and continually get new items in that niche. What you're going to find if you're just starting off in a niche, and I know there's some folks, just like Charles up here, talking about selling postcards. There's a learning curve. Every single thing we've ever done, there's a learning curve to do it. So I don't just pick something and then tomorrow I know it. It takes months. Sometimes some niches, just to understand the markings in your head without having to have a book out in public, or because you can't look up a lot of the niches, the individual aspects of them on your phone. There's not enough information online. That's why, again, they're money makers. They're good money makers. It may not be as many collectors for those niches that we're in, but they make us a lot of money. I'd rather have higher priced items that sell less than a ton of stuff selling for almost nothing, because again, it's time and effort. And once we get the people buying from us, they're going to pay the prices that we want in that range. There's another aspect to get more sales too, and far too many people think that it's nothing, and that's not how it works. But perceived value on listings means a big deal. It means a lot to us, and I take it, as I don't want to say it offensively, but I take it as Bible, I guess, to an extent, on the fact that type of thing works. I worked in corporate America. I worked for I made over 11 million in my region. Again, this is just to set the background state here. When they told me something, they had research to back it up. I fully, without a doubt, believe 100% that perceived value is a great factor and a great way to sell things. What does that mean? What are you talking about? I know people are going to ask that, but perceived value is like pricing in a certain way, so you have room to go ahead and do discounts. And that, if you don't know what's going on in retail and has been going on in retail for the life of retail, prices are jacked up on things when they come in the store, knowing that they're going to have to mark them down or that they're going to put them on sale. That's the way of the road, I guess you'd say, as Ricky or somebody would say. The point is, though, that pricing structure, if you're pricing them at or just a hair above what you want to get out of them, you don't have any playroom. And other folks who have a bigger sale or a bigger push or a bigger quantity are going to take advantage of other sellers who aren't doing certain things, like zoom-ins, man. I'm telling you, I can almost guarantee you that our percentage is almost 30% bump when we started doing zoom-ins on the vast majority of our paper items. We've never turned away from doing them after we started, because I could see the increase in it. Again, anything you can get to draw people in, anything you can get. The niches is honestly the best way to do it. And again, when you're buying stuff, if you're going to go and look and there's baseball cards out there, you're not going to see just one of them. You're going to probably see some kid's 5,000 flat box sitting there on a shelf or something, or long boxes of entire team or year sets, Upper Deck or Tops or whatever, OPG or whatever you're into in the card industry. Whatever, comic books, long boxes, you're going to run into it. It's the same basic principle. I buy stuff in bulk in the same niche. That's why many times if I'm going to list something, I list them at the same time to draw as many people in to that who are into that niche into your store at the same time. If you're going to list, like I'm listing, we've got, I don't know, 400 cards, trade cards that are worth at least $100 that are going up. We're listing them all in a very, very short period of time, because once some of the other cards, start showing up in search results and the whole works, it's going to draw people in, especially when they keep seeing more and more. And hopefully they'll be scanning through our store. And that's usually what happens. Whenever you list something new in that same niche, usually you get sales of new items as well as old, all clumped together. Every day, pretty much, of our life, we're shipping multiple purchases. That means more than one item to the same person at the very same time. And that's a daily occurrence, which has never happened from us before. There's nothing wrong with selling clothing or anything else like that. But if you're going to sell and you want to get multiple purchases from the same person in clothing, you have to have similar sizes, styles, and stuff like that. And there's a bunch of people who do that extremely well, who make a good deal of money from shirts. Like some of the 3D Harley Davidson hog shirts and stuff like that. Those do very, very well. But you got to have a bunch of Harley Davidson shirts in the same size genre area to be able to do well. Rock concert shirts. I've always done well. We've sold some for hundreds of dollars, even if they've had holes in them. But you do far better having a bunch and being known as the rock concert shirt guy. Chuck, $1 Million Peddlers. Magazine, Mr. Magazine. Why is he called Mr. Magazine? Why does everybody that I personally talk to who's been in this industry for a couple decades know who he is? At least know the name, whether they've met him, seen him, or anything else like that. Because he's built a reputation for selling quantity of a specific item for it, and he's the go-to guy these days if you got a huge collection to sell. Luckily, we can do that in some categories too, and that's the point. You specialize in some things, and you get an inside secret step up above anybody else in their buttons. I've got 5 different people who are unloading their entire lifetime assortment of them on us right now. So that's a lot of money coming in. It's a lot. Again, they know I'm making money on it. They're not going to list them all together. They want out. They want, they're retiring. And anyway, long story short, one of them's in a state and I'm helping. Anyway, the end of the story is here, though. Niches. People come to you. People hand out, this person bought this for me, and here you go. They know each other. The niches are smaller markets, but everybody seems to know each other. So, like some categories, there's no way if you're looking for anything in a niche and several niches on eBay that you're not going to see many of my items. Because we've been listing in those categories for a decade, my items are on every page. Every way you do it, you're going to see 20-30% of my listings on those pages. Again, that's why my sales in niche categories doesn't drop, and that's why it continues. Let's say you got one person buying $25 worth of merchandise from you every month in the niche that he collects in. That's $300 a year extra for every year from that point on if you keep that person. You get 10 people that do that. Now you're up to $3,000 a year. Now we're just talking one purchase, $25. Average purchase-wise, when someone's buying multiples, is about $100. And that's maybe once a month, or sometimes it might be every other month. Again, I couldn't do that going one-offs, driving around randomly, or not centering in target sourcing. I target my sourcing stuff. I don't randomly go. I look for it, and I put feelers out there. I offer, a buyer's commission for, turning my way and all that kind of stuff. Whatever it takes to get the stuff that I want to sell in-house. And obviously, we have no problem doing that. I've got this goes up tomorrow. I'm not going to show you what it is, but it goes up tomorrow. That's just my personal, what I'm going to list tomorrow. Quantity-wise, again, quantity-wise with niches is the best way to do it. That's the best increase I can tell you. That's the biggest increase we have seen was through doing niches and having quantity of those niches. Quantity overrules anything else. Value-wise, too, again, going back to pricing structure, I usually do a 3X across. We had some baseball cards we just sold. They were Victorian. They're not really baseball per se, like in modern day or anything else like that. I got my 1/3, which is the 3X process. I got that out of it. So I'm very happy with it. I have nothing into it. Person bought 2 of them. Paid for them immediately. That's another thing with niches. you're going to find, too, in niches that the people who are buying from you, if they're really a collector, are never going to stiff you. They'll even be hesitant to return stuff, even if, there's some that'll come out and ask real nicely. I don't care. They've been buying me for a long time. No problems with it if they bought the same card twice. They didn't look before all that stuff will happen. And that's not a problem. But again, the niches is, I don't care what it is. If it's new shirts or household goods, new household goods, if that's your niche, fly with it and expand from there. If it's books, again, fly with that and go from there. Whatever, anything. It could be anything. There's sticker people that just sell stickers. There's people who just sell magnets. There's people who do, printing and all sorts of different things like that. There's people who make shipping supplies and shipping letters and thank you notes and you name it. There's somebody out there who does it and makes a living at it. There's a ton of things you can do, but stay in a zone until you can figure that zone out and then expand. Having a lot of items or a large set of items in the same niche is always the best, no matter what it is. I would rather sell, 10 items to the same person than hope 10 different people come into my store and want those same items. The odds of 10 separate people coming in versus one person buying 10, it doesn't weigh out. You've got to get 3 times the amount of traffic that's interested in those specific items versus the one person who's going to buy multiples. Like, if you sell comic books and, all you got are like Mickey Mouse or something, that's all the type of people that are going to come in there. And they're not as popular, they're not as hot. And if they're very common, you're not going to sell many of them. It's not going to be worth your time. Again, it depends. If they're Dell 4-color vintage or Golden Age or something, totally different. Don't get me wrong. But, just in general, you're going to have to think about that aspect of it. Anything can be sold. I try to stick to things that I actually like. I try to stick to things that I actually like across the board. We actually bought some more animation cells. I probably have 3,000 or 4,000 animation cells from 90s and 80s TV series in-house right now. Massive amounts of them and stuff like that. When we list those, however we're going to list them, we might list them in like a scene, a whole scene, because we have them all sequential. We're going to list a whole bunch of them all at the same time. Because, again, it'll draw more people in. It'll draw the interest. And it's not just in one specific cartoon series. It's in a couple of them. So keeping up and keep having access to buying more of the same niche is a key to it, too. If you only can get it once in your life, you're eventually going to be cherry-picked out. Somebody's going to buy all the good stuff, and you're going to be left with the junk that's only going to be able to be sold in lots. And if you never learned enough because you only found it once or twice, you're not going to know that until you've spent all that time listing all those junk items. That again, that's why there's a learning curve for everything. I've rambled enough. Let me pop on down here. Stephen Holden, how are you doing? Good evening, good evening. Hey, Marty, how are you doing, Marty? Yeah, I last minute pop on it was just one of those things. I hit the wrong button, to be honest with you. Andy Robinson, how are you doing this evening? Let me pop on down. Rosilla Review. I've had luck in the past selling opera classic music scores, but it's been 25 years since I sold the last one. It depends. Now, like vintage paper items, there's trends. Sheet music's totally different. If you're talking about sheet music versus, say, LP records, the 20 years ago, what sold 20 years ago is not going to sell now. And I'll tell you why. Because we sold records 20 years ago. The folks who bought opera LPs, if that's what you're specific talking about, a lot of them have passed. A lot of them aren't out there anymore. And a large number of the new ones want the new digitally released LPs, and the weighted vinyl, virgin vinyl and all that kind of stuff, because they're going to be sealed and all that stuff. And I do see an encroachment. There's more new ones being sold and less old ones being sold is what's slowly happened. Not massively, but it's enough to beat out some of those. So I buy some of the living stereos, but I don't mess with much of the opera, honestly, these days. They have to be sold in lots, or it has to be a very specific, like a blueback London LP. The blueback ones are the originals, and those are usually worth a lot of money. Even those prices have dropped. Merry Christmas, Amazon Seller 99. Merry Christmas to everyone tonight. I'm gonna have a couple more videos up. We're hanging around this whole weekend with the weather coming in and everything. Hey Biff, how you doing, Biff? Biff Bofo, welcome, welcome. Dave, Midwest Picker. So we've got Marty, Jiminy Flippit, YouTuber, as well as Dave, Midwest Picker here in house. Two good guys I would check out if you get a chance. Where are we at? Sing some No, I'm not going to sing. Believe it or not, I went to a Catholic grade school and I did sing in the choir. I did leave after the choir conductor ran away with one of the nuns who was a second grade teacher at the time. That's a true story. I'm not going to tell you the church, but that's a true story. I kind of lost faith in what was going on with the church. I was an altar boy, and I used to help out with the Boy Scouts, and I was the all-told nerd for back in those days, I guess. Tristina, how you doing? Good evening. Thank you as well. Matt Jake, how you doing, Matt Jake? Good to see you in house also. Callie says he's up 17% this December over last year. We are up, I couldn't tell you the exact number, but we are up a considerable amount. Not as much as I would like to be, but in double digits, so I can't complain. And we've listed less stuff. We've had some medical issues and things like that, so I haven't done nearly as much input. We were down a couple staff because of graduation and things like that, so I'm very happy with the results. Again, the amount of results, the amount of revenue you get back, it depends on how much you put into it. With the effort we're putting into it, I'm extremely ecstatic, happy about what's going on. I can't complain at this point here. Variety of items is good, but I keep to about 50 niches. The 50 items that I enjoy selling. So it spreads me out across multiple areas. And most of the niches that we sell in have multi-category interest. So even if you sell in fewer niches, fewer categories, if you pick items that are of interest to 4 different groups, 2 different groups, 3 different groups, you'll do far better. Like a button, for an example. You might have a button from like a railroad. So you have button collectors and railroad collectors that would want that. There might be a military one that's tied to like a local city historical group or something. There might be a uniform collector. There might be somebody who has a uniform that's missing that button. There might be someone buying it for a family member as a Christmas gift or something. So there's a lot of different reasons someone would get something, and you want as many reasons possible to be out there for whatever item that you're selling. That's a marketing thing too. It's right along there with perceived value. If you want to sell more though, like military, I love military items. I sell a ton of military items. I've done the shows. I've set up at them myself. I've had my own booths and malls, many malls at the same time. I've been heavy into military. I've sold guns. I've sold swords, sabers. One of my favorite are the 1830 short artillery swords. Those are my all-time favorite because they always remind me of the Roman swords. I've even had a CS one once before. But I've got multiple items in that category. So niche-wise, a button may be a niche. Belts and buckles may be a niche. But they all tie to a bigger category. And I sell anything that's in the military genre from Vietnam War down. That's my... And usually World War II or before. World War II, one, Spanish-American, Civil War, any of the Indian Wars, First Seminole, Second, Third Seminole Indian Wars, Republic of Texas era... You name it, all that stuff does well. Mexican-American War, War of 1812, Rev War, I sell all of that. And having it in, it expands the amount of people that are going to be interested. Because a person who collects maybe mostly World War II, in many occasions, will end up buying stuff that's older than that. They may collect things from a specific regiment. That's what I had this past week. I had 3 different people reach out to me. One was I think he was the grandson of the person he has the uniform for, and he needed so many buttons, multiple buttons. And I hooked the guy up, we gave him a deal, and off he went. He bought every one of that type. I had a sergeant, a guy, maybe it wasn't a sergeant. Yeah, I think it was a sergeant. It doesn't matter. He was a ranked person, he was in the military. He was in the modern version of this regiment, and I had some buttons from... The Grays. Anyway, no one probably knows what that is, but I sold him a whole bunch of the Washington Grays, and they have Washington on the button. That button's collected by like 5 different groups of people specifically. I've got 50 of them in house or something. I don't remember how many he bought, but he bought a whole bunch of them. Those are the type of things that happen all the time. So selling multiples of the same person, I would rather do than buying a whole bunch of one-offs, truthfully, because I gotta lure them in. I've got to figure out that other item specifically. Again, don't just sell in a small range of items. I do have like 50, and that covers a huge range. Coins and tokens I love. Movie-related memorabilia I love. Toys, action figures I love. Video games, anything movie-related. Records of any type. I've got couple 100,000 records in house. Paper, postcards, trade cards, ribbons, brochures, maps, die cuts I love. I've got probably 50,000, 70,000 die cuts in house. Greeting cards, obviously. Masks. We've got dozens and dozens of masks, carved wood, statuary. Again, it just depends on your knowledge base, what you want to get out of this. The more you invest in learning a niche or a category, the better you're going to do. When everybody else was, the people making fun of me and the wife for what we were doing and stuff, and investing all that time and not going out and partying like everybody else was, we were more interested in gaining some knowledge. So we used to spend hours, digging and researching and trying to source down things and stuff for years of my life. That was an investment. That's like going to college for reselling, and that's how I seriously take it. But that's the learning curve that everybody has to get through. The more you know, it's an investment. If you plan on really doing this, you should want to invest the time to learn something new, to learn an area that's not as flooded as something that you may be selling in now. Clothing's flooded. Tennis shoes are flooded these days. Books are flooded. Video games are flooded. Even some records, depending on what you're selling. The earlier ones we seem to do much better on, and the profit margins are huge. A couple of days in record sales is fine if they're better records. It doesn't take much to, bring in $1,000 a week or even a month on records. It just depends on what you're selling. I've sold, individual discs for $4,000, so it only takes 1 or 2. And if you get in good on certain categories like records, for an example, I know probably 20 or 30 people in England. So when I get a Northern Soul record in, a 45, I can just shoot off a photo of it, and I'll get a check or PayPal notice or whatever the case may be if someone wants it. First person doesn't take it, I got 20 more lined up right down the line. We used to send out like a catalog of new records in house when we were really heavy into just specifically Northern Soul. And I got to build up a big clientele of people that still contact us. Even though I don't send it out, I do send out notices on, the top 1,000 highest valued soul records. Northern Soul is a big interest in England. Tommy and the Derbies is the last one we sold, and that one went for like $4,200. It was on Swing. It's a Swing label. It's a private out of Jackson, Mississippi. I've had 3 of those same records, all sold for thousands. I think the last one still will show up on Pop Psych even too, but it's got scribbles on the label. Anyway, I know I've rambled. Biff, I know you have no love for the listing quality report, but have you heard why eBay is killing it in February? Well, I didn't know they were killing it because I don't pay any attention much to eBay these days, but it was useless, and I don't think many people used it, and I can almost guarantee you they can tell if you've opened it to see if it's there. I've got screenshots. I've got videos showing what they used to send us on ours. Every single time it told me I needed more photos, even if I had 5, which is usually the max I like to do these days. If it takes more than that, I usually don't list the item. It'll just set in a box somewhere. And the other one was to promote the listing or fill in item specifics. It was a joke. And I looked at the numbers. I've sat there and dug down the numbers on where I would stand in the categories. It gave you your ranking out of all sellers on eBay in specific categories. And I know it said I was like 1 in a couple of them, and 3 and 4 and 5 in some other ones, but there's no way if the numbers are right. If that's true, then eBay's lying somewhere else in some of the numbers that they're posting out there on category-wide sales. And that would also say that Terapeak's all screwed up and doesn't mean anything then, which I don't think that's the case. So anyway, I just think it was a stupid app, Biff. That's my. I don't. It was useless to me. It was useless to me. They're telling that report they were telling everybody knew. Just use that report, and let's talk about what I've been doing in the background here. I've been running a test on promoted listings. If you're in my Patreon group or here in a YouTube membership, I talked about it. I showed you the screenshot. 100%. I'm doing 7,998 listings. We started them on December 5th with promoted listings. I swear to you, this is the complete truth on it. Our sales have not been as good as when we were just doing, without promoted listings, just doing the sales and markdown. I had it instantly dropped the next day when I started doing that. And I'm no fool and no lies whatsoever. And we are promoting 4%, more so than the 2% everybody says you're going to get a big boost and all this stuff. And the results are terrible. Terrible, terrible. I said I would run it for at least 2 weeks. So on the 19th, we were going to stop it. We're going to run it to the 30-day mark. If it hurts our sales, it hurts our sales. But I don't think I would do it again. We're still in, on top of running that 4% promoted listings on what was it, a quarter of our store. So I think it wasn't a quarter, maybe it was 20% of our store. We also were still running a 28 to 30% sales and markdown. I lowered it down. Because I didn't want it to just look to be like it was only the markdowns that were bringing them in. What I find is eBay has steered the sales and markdowns that we were running, steered all those people over to promoted listings. That's the only explanation for the results that I see on our numbers. So I don't trust when eBay tells you to promote them anymore at all. I don't feel that for the items that we personally have, my first assumption I feel is correct, that our items are too odd and unique and scarce. Even if they're not super like a $10,000 item, they're still beyond what the average person would be selling, so there's only a limited amount that would have to show up on a search result. I look for items on eBay all the time. I go to a clear, browser cleared, no tracker, no cookies, nothing, all fresh, and I go look for my items. I don't log in, or we log in on a different name, and we go from there and see how easily the items show up on search results. Everything's cleared. Recent searches are gone. The browser history, anything's all cleared off. It's a fresh start. Reboot, everything. You know, and I really think that they're steering. Maybe it's not an intentional process. Maybe it is. I don't know. I know that the item-specific changes, in my opinion, are based on being able to target the promoted listings, the advanced version of it, for more money, revenue from us. If I'm going to have to do a 20% to eBay, it wouldn't be worth it to me. And the only reason I ran it is because I figured we were running like 35 or 40% discount. Again, my 3X allows me to do that. I'm still making more than the majority of people selling the exact same items by doing that. And it big, huge perceived value. So we dropped it down, and that way I'm actually losing a little less, but eBay's taking part of that as what we figured it on. And I figured that would be the fairest way to do it. And the results are terrible. Honest to God, terrible. I am really surprised. Because I've had people tell me you're going to see this, you're going to see that, and your sales will boost. It's not true. I don't care what anybody says. We've done it. I've got quantity enough. We're doing like to like in multiple categories. I've got 4,000 in one category, and I still have 12. So basically, I'm doing a 4,000 in, say, Victorian trade card test versus almost 20,000 that aren't promoted. And, you know, when you can compare ratios and all that stuff. So overall, the sales and markdown have been dropped, and it's been eaten up by the promoted, and it's pretty much dragging it down is what it appears to be doing. Again, it depends on what you sell for anything you do. Promoted listing, though, works for people selling in flooded categories. I'm never going to deny that because we've used it, say, on Amazon or something. Promoted listings works. You know, and I know people who, I've seen their numbers. I've seen what happens on promoted listings with flooded categories, clothing, and all that kind of stuff. If you've got rare and unique items, it may not be the right choice for you, and you may be losing sales or, you know, giving eBay a little more than they need for doing nothing different than they were doing before. That's my take on it. So, again, it depends on the data eBay gives you, and that quality report always told you to do promoted listings. Of course, they want you to because they get money out of it. They've got an incentive to tell you to do that and to post it on every single document and every single reason why you're not having problems. I probably have 20 or 30 people, copies of emails, and a couple of them even sent me some phone conversations where eBay's telling them, oh, if you're having sales problems, you should promote your listings. That's always the answer. It's always an answer that gives them more money. I don't see any coincidence there, whatever, but that's them. It's their company. They can do what you want. That's the cost of doing business. I still make a real good chunk of change on our eBay stores and on Amazon. So, who cares, I guess at this point. Well, let's see where we at. Bob Coleman, how are you doing this evening? Merry Christmas back at you there. Yeah, Marty's been under the weather. I don't know anybody who hasn't been sick this season around. I've had something too, but not like Marty, but good to see he's back on. Let's see if we can slide down here. Where are we at? Christine, as an artist, I appreciate your creativity. Bravo. Depends on what you're doing. Yeah, I like doing stuff like that. Probably talking about the Santa Claus. He freestands, and I made the outfit between me and the wife, and it's all vintage fabric from Victorian clothing. Sculpey head. He weighs like 20 pounds. That's why he can stand up. I've got his center of gravity down on that one. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, we've had a lot going on here. It's been a trying time. I got my son, one of my kids got their first car ever this week, and he got something nicer, and he's worked hard for it, so he deserves it. We helped him out, of course, but fabulous flamingos, welcome. Mark, Texas Patriot, welcome. Spent some time in Austin, Dallas, more time there, but thank you, Stardust Memories. Tay Pig. What's your shipping method? Tay Pig, what's your shipping method for postcards? No, I don't stick anything in an envelope. Everything is tracked. I don't use eBay's cheap dollar envelope rate. Even though they post it every single darn day of my life, I got to see their stupid post before I can get to my account now. Telling me, use the rate. The tracking is not official post office tracking. It's like a secondary in-system track. So that means that it may not show up as scanned on delivery at all. And I'd rather lose a few sales and not have to worry about bad feedback. Even if they cover you from the loss, they can't cover you from an item not being scanned and them claiming it not there and leaving you bad feedback. They would open up a case and then you'd have to give them their money back, and it's just a nuisance. I don't have any issues shipping the way we do on eBay. We sell postcards every day of my life, multiples usually every day. So I'm not too worried about the missing out on a few. Most people who are using that too are selling cheaper postcards from what I see, and I'd rather just stick it out, and I don't care if anything's long tail, truthfully. When you have enough quantity, you're on multiple sites. eBay's, a percentage of my business, the one that you see. It's not, I don't even look at eBay the way a lot of people do, because I look at a P&L statement, and it's got everything funneled down to one specific thing. It tells me I made such and such profit at the end of the month. These are my sales costs, labor, revenue, and everything's broken down in a P&L statement. It doesn't matter so much as long as that number's still going up. I'm not too worried. If one site's down a lot, then I dig into it and figure it out and do something. But first class with tracking, $3.50 to $4 or $5, depending on what's shipped out. In my packages, even for a postcard, is about that thick. It's wrapped in one panel, one of 16 you get from a cardboard box. It's sealed in plastic on top of it so water can't get in, and then it goes in a poly bag that's waterproof as well at the end of the day. It's tracked. They can see it the minute. It's shipped within 24 hours. That's the key. If you're going to charge what we charge on it, it's got to be quick. It's got to be quick. People don't mind paying. People say, well, you're not going to sell much, doing it that way without using the envelope rate. That's not true. I ship everything very quickly. I don't have any 4-day or, we ship out on the weekends if you buy it on Monday and all. I ship out in 24 hours or less. People who bought from us, You know, prior to the post office coming in, if somebody bought, you know, a couple hundred more dollars of items, they're going to still go out within an hour sometimes of them paying it. We're working. What's the difference if I pack it up today or tomorrow? Everything goes out quick. Everything is wrapped the same way. Everything's professional. And people don't mind paying extra if you take care of them. Always combine. If somebody buys one item and then they, again, because I've got somebody in some categories, so if they'll come back, they might buy a second item and not even realize that it was me until after they purchased the second item. Even if they don't ask, we combine them and refund the difference automatically every time, every single time. And all that, you know, they're fine with paying the difference if you're going to take care of it, handle it properly. They're getting it super, super quick. They'll pay for the quickness, you know, as opposed to just dropping in an envelope. The tracking ones usually go faster. That's my opinion. I mean, I've done it this way for years. I have not had any issues with it. Hey, Nancy, how you doing, Nancy? Hopefully you're doing well. Again, one more time here for those who just popped in. There is a Patreon video and a YouTube membership video up right this very second. It's like 32 or 33 minutes. The next half will probably be up tomorrow because I still want to get something else up. I think Wednesday is going to be the live show for Patreon. And if that is the case, it does way out there. That was the percentage on the poll. It'll be next Wednesday, the first one. There will be a video up, though, this weekend showing the process. So when we run it, everybody will know how they can pop in and instantly talk so we can talk face-to-face, so to speak. So anyway, that'll be shortly. Where are we at? Douglas Lockhart. Let's see here. Patricia Phoenix. Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you very kindly. Peddling Profits, welcome, welcome. Thank you very kindly. Stephen Holt and De La Rue made many postage stamps also. Yeah, they also made Cinderella's, poster stamps. Geez, a ton of different things. I even want to say they made currency for a few other countries, British colonial era and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken. They started in like the 1840s or 50s, if I'm not mistaken either. Some of their series are just spectacular. Some of the best artwork I've ever seen from that era have been on De La Rue cards. And that's why there's De La Rue cards that can sell for like $3,000. We've sold a whole playing card decks from De La Rue for, you know, $400 or $500 before. Christopher Bashaw, how are you doing? I have 3 maps from the Detroit Times newspaper, original 1945 prints. What's your thoughts? Depends on what the maps are of, I guess would be the biggest point. And if they're on newspaper paper, they're probably not going to be worth very much at all. Detroit's, there's not many collectibles from Detroit proper that are worth a ton of money. Not necessarily because of the city itself, but because of quantity made. Newspaper-wise, and I've sold newspapers, you know, just actual vintage newspapers like Civil War up to, say, Vietnam era and stuff like that. For years and years, newspaper items don't sell for a ton of money. They always sell, but they don't sell for a ton of money. Like War Ends, VJ Day, or something like that, or even the D-Day invasion. You might get $40 for a newspaper, even with the maps in it. I would imagine you're talking about an insert, would be my guess, like some of the prints on better paper, if that's the case. Then it'd come down to size, where it's at. If it's a World War II map, talking about, you know, where the lines of combat are and stuff like that, they were made into the millions. Most cities did that. Again, it's going to depend on all those key factors in there. Pig Winch is just, John Winch is the owner of the company, or the company's name is John Winch, I guess. That's literally the only difference, in that there's a design on the back of them. Yeah, I'm not going to get up just to grab some, but I have some Winch over there. It's just the way a Winch back looks. Just type in Winch postcard on eBay and look at the back of it. Everyone I've ever run into, I could establish it with that back, have been Winches. Obviously, newer ones, like I rip it off. Not rip it off. It's public domain at this point, but hopefully that explains it. Hey, Cindy, how are you doing? We are freezing here in central Illinois. Now real temp is -3, and with wind it's -26. You are north of me by, a couple hundred miles, I would say. So by, I think, 11 tonight, it's supposed to be down to 4 degrees and then still dropping overnight from there, from what we understand. The city sent out notices and warnings and all kinds of stuff already. Dave Midwest Picker, same thing. He's up in that area too. Tony Pepperoni, how are you doing? Thank you very kindly. Greatly appreciate that. I'm not going to give out too many on here. Clap Saddle's a good one to look for, artist-wise. In fact, the last postcard video, or last video I did on Patreon had some Clap Saddle. I think there was even some winch in that. I had a nice little stack of postcards, Christmas ones, $200 or $300 or better worth. We don't have anything into them, so. Let me pop it down. Negative 49 tonight. Woof. Mike's messy room. Thank you very kindly, Mike. Yeah, buying postcards can be good if you buying a bunch of them. The only thing I would say, there's no matter what information you have or get from whoever you're getting it from on postcards, there's always an exception. Always an exception in any niche genre, whatever else there is. I've probably looked at, I don't know, going on 10 million individual postcards. True number there in the last couple of decades. We've been doing this for almost 30 years now. The more you look at, the more I'm great with, if I looked at something, I'm very good at remembering stuff like that. That's the one area where I can always remember the value when I see it. Maybe I couldn't describe it until I see it, but I always remember something when I looked at it, and that's a good plus. There's an exception for every rule in the book in postcards. Every single rule. Another thing to worry about is there's a lot of reproduction postcards. One of my patrons is actually sending me some. I'll probably do a video on it. Give him credit for sending him in the whole works, but they're reproductions. He didn't get taken for too much, but the point is that there's reproductions on postcards. And if you're in my Patreon, I talk about how to tell old paper and new paper too. There's a real easy way to do it, but. Let's see where we at. Berg Bryce, welcome. Thank you very kindly. Nick Picker, I'm in Ohio, also close to Lima. I get to Lima once in a blue moon, maybe twice or 3 times a year. Yeah, we're supposed to get like 6 to 8 inches of snow on top of it. So it's raining now, it's supposed to freeze, and then it's all going to be covered with snow, so you won't be able to tell. We got already dog-safe salt ready. Well, it's not salt, but whatever it's called. The weather outside is frightful. Thanks, Stardust. That's good. Ross Hammond, when someone does a lowball offer, let's say $5 on a $100 item, do you decline the offer or let it sit and time out? Afraid to decline the offer because I don't want them to spam it again. I just, if let's say they offered $5 on a $100 item, I'd counter back at like $85. You won't hear from them again. Or they'll raise it to $6 or something. And if they do that, I'll just decline it then. That's all. I'm not going to play any games on it or anything. I had somebody today that it was it was a Durham tobacco card. It was a metamorphic tobacco card. It changed characters on the front by flipping little piece of paper over. It was listed, I think, originally for $54.75. It was on sale for $42.50. They offered $25, which wasn't a terrible offer, but I went and double checked on what the last couple sold for, and I wanted a little more, so I countered back at, I think it was $28.50, and they just came back at $25, so I declined it. You know, and then an hour later, it was sold at the $42.50. So I never worry about declining anymore at all. And I've had people tell me, well, eBay is going to penalize you. I don't see that at all. They can't. They're not going to criticize you for wanting to get a certain amount out of a certain piece of paper. That used to be in the quality report. They were saying stuff like, "This is average sale prices here," even though there was no other one, or no other sales history of that item on eBay at all. But somehow they had sales history to tell me what to price it at, even though none existed on the site. eBay's reports are like generalized, so they don't pay attention or understand the difference between like a rare versus a semi-rare versus a common. They don't. The distinction isn't there, is what I would say. Stephen lives close to Lima too. John Doe. Fire isn't delightful. We don't have a fire going here, but I don't mind having a nice fire roaring. When we stay in Hocking Hills area, we usually have a cabin with, a fireplace, a real fireplace. Wapakoneta. We go out that way too. We go out to the museum out there. The what's it, Wright-Patterson? Excuse me, my sinuses are bugging me still. Cindy Roach. With like one-of-a-kind items. Yeah, you might sell them, but you're only going to sell that one item, and then that person you may never ever see again, I guess, is the biggest difference. If you've got a bunch of in the same category and they're collectibles, the people are going to be collecting those. They're not going to collect them just once. They're going to collect them and build up a collection. Baseball card collectors might have 1 million baseball cards. They might have every year since when they were a child or whatever the case may be, every player on the team, every rookie that they can get. I try to stick to things that aren't going to be like a one-time sale, that are going to drum me more business, because to get somebody in to buy something and for them to only come back once is almost a waste. When someone comes into the store, I'm hoping that they're coming as a collector, and they're going to want to come back because I've got enough quantity to draw their interest to begin with. So wasting time and effort to draw somebody to your store just once, it's like I wouldn't promote a listing on, say, Amazon if I only had one of them or a half a dozen of them, because it's going to take a little time to build it up. It's going to cost you money, and at the end of the day, you only have 6 to sell. It wouldn't be worth it. But if you've got a couple hundred of them, the initial investment in there is going to pay off, tenfold, because it's going to weed itself out. It's going to have a bigger footprint across the net, because you're not going to end it or anything. You're just going to keep that thing running, the sale as well as the item. You may be selling hundreds of them. The more you sell, the more business you're going to get out of those types of things. So there's a ploy to doing all of this. Whatever it comes down to is again, perceived value and to play on that. That's why stores do prices like $1.99, $2.99, $5.99, $9.99 is so much better sounding than $10. It's only 1 penny, but it's a psychological effect that's true, that's real, that's scientifically proven. It works that way. They ran all these tests. The retail establishment spent millions and of dollars to run tests and to have focus groups and to compare stores that had $10 versus $9.99 listed as prices. The store and like-to-like markets, same size of community, same size of customer base, the whole works. And that's what I rely, just like the zoom ins. That's again a perceived value, a perceived as if you were showing off the most important thing. That's so much better. If you're doing like a long shot of some item, you can't see the details when you're looking in gallery view. You can't see the details when people are scanning through to decide on what item they want to look at or if they're interested in your item. So that's why you may not even get a watcher or views on it, because your main image isn't showing enough of what you're talking about. You can't just rely on keywords alone. You've got to have a combination of good keywords all the way to the left of the title. You've got to have a zoom in if it's just like a lot or something. When you can't see the items, there's no appeal, eye appeal. Eye appeal is part of the perceived value. That's why they front and face on a store. If you ever worked in retail, when items are sold, all day long, people, managers, or whoever's in charge are having people do what's called front and face. So when there's a gap in the front of the shelf, they have to pull everything forward so it looks full, so it's more appealing. It's a factor. People never want the last can or want to reach back in there, so you'll sell more when all the shelves look full. It's the same principle when your photo is just centered in and just fills the screen with the item. It's the same basic principle. It's all marketing. It's all marketing, and that's a key to selling things. You know, you're basically a salesman, and you have to draw them into your store with visual and keyword aspects. If you're not doing those two combined right, you know, you can mess around with the prices, but you can't mess around with the images and the title, the keywords. You know, sometimes we do better when I raise prices on some items. Jack them up $50. You'll be surprised. Again, it's a perceived value, especially if someone's been watching it and they see you raise it. Sometimes it initiates them to buy it in case there's something going on, and the price might go up again. You'll be surprised. I know people that swear by doing it, and they do it all the time, far more than I do, but they've got different items. Hopefully that answers. I know I rambled. Reheld Chi, any seller here who has more than 2,000? Yeah, what do we? I don't remember how many we even have. I don't have it open. Now we've got, I don't know how many we have. I don't even want to look. 20, 30,000. I don't know how many we've got. We got a lot of feedback, I know, but well over 2,000. Paper is great, John. And Cindy knows that as well. It's my favorite area, next to military and some other things. But I really like toys, but it's a fight to get toys. Now, that's another thing, too. Reselling for me is very stress-free these days. I don't pay attention to eBay. I don't pay attention to anything else but my bottom line these days. Again, it's all in a P&L statement, so I have no incentive to worry about anything if it's going, you know, fine. Hang on, where were we at? I was going somewhere with that, and I totally lost my... Oh, well, I guess I totally lost my train of thought off that one. Sorry, I've got a lot going on. I can hear people walking around in the background. I'm going to probably end this in just a few minutes. My sinuses are killing me. I need to take something. MSRP, manufactured suggested retail price versus MAP. Yeah, we had to do that. I worked in retail, too, for many years. Let me pop on down. Maybe my feed just bounced. Maybe that's what I'm at. Yeah, my feed's all over now. Sorry, folks. Axle warp shaft, how are you doing? Perceived value is huge. I sold a piece of sports memorabilia a few days ago. The last one that sold on eBay sold for $50. Mine in far worse condition sold for 3 times that because I knew what I had. Far too many people who haven't done this a while on eBay, even though those who have thousands of items in some categories. There's a lot of resellers, and this isn't a criticism, but there's a lot of resellers out there who just throw up a whole bunch of quantity. You know, $3, $5, $6 items, just stuff that's just wasting time. And sales volume isn't huge and all that stuff. If they price some of those higher, or put them in lots and then price them that way, and only sold the better stuff, they'd have more time, they'd be selling more, and shipping less. They'd be combined and all that kind of stuff. Again, perceived value is so big with everything that you do. Even if 10 people sold something for $10, that doesn't mean that I can't get 30 for that same item. When you're looking at solds too, look at when those sold. If like 10 of something sold, there's none up right now. They all sold within a short period of time or right after the other ones. The price goes down. Let's say I had 10 of something, and I'm the only one who has it. The first one I list, I'm always going to get more than all the other ones if it's a desirable item. I might still get top dollar for the second one, even the third one, even the fourth one. But at some point, there's less people that want that item, and the price will dip as it goes by. So by the time you get to the 10th one, it may be a third of the price you were originally getting for that same item. And that goes for whether it's one person selling it that way or multiple people selling it that way. The other thing that most people totally forget, even those on YouTube are preaching this or preaching that, is that the majority of people buying items on eBay, buyers who aren't sellers, don't look up the items on Terapeak. And if they look them up on Completed and it's an item that only shows up 3 or 4 times a year, there won't be enough information for them to judge a price structure on that item. And I'm not saying that it is or isn't worth it. It doesn't. That's not the point. The point is that they're not looking it up to begin with. And even if they are, if you're offering a better service, have better feedback, have better knowledge in the area, you can still get more than all the other people out there. Because they're just people who happen to get something. They looked it up on eBay. Everybody else was selling it for 10, so they're going to get $10 for it. I have no problem putting 30 on that same item that 10 other people sold it for 10. Because probably 40 or better percent of the time, I get more than that $10. I may not get 30, I may only get 20, but that's the 3x structure there. I'm getting double at selling at 20 than what everybody else did. Why? Because once their 10 items, the ones that sold, are gone, I'm the only one up. My item's the only one available. And if they're not looking at completed or sold, it doesn't matter what the other ones sold for. And even if they did look at what sold, those other 10 that sold for $10 and mine's up for 30, offered me 20 on it, it's the only one available. You know, it's the only one available. Condition, and there's other factors too, but that's the ploy on it. My 3X is for perceived value. I will always do perceived value because there's no way on earth that it doesn't work. I've seen the numbers in retail establishments that sold millions of dollars. I've seen ones that were advertised. I've seen when they move stuff from one section of a store to another where it's in eye shot, what happens. All that stuff is a working seriously process. It actually works. Perceived value is a real thing. You again may not mentally realize you're doing that and you're buying it because it looks cheaper, but it's a thing. It works. It's a real thing. It's a high percentage of success for the most extent across the board. It's something I always rely on. And I don't care what everybody else sells the same item for. If there's only a limited amount of them have sold, game's on. I don't care. I put stuff up on Amazon, and I don't care if there's people that have a little cheaper than me. They'll run out, and I'll still be up there selling it at my higher price. I'd rather, again, if people sell it for a third of what I'm selling it for, they've got to sell 3 times as many items to make the exact same amount that I'm making. I would rather work smarter than harder and list twice as many or 3 times as many items to get the same amount as somebody else. I'd rather wait a little longer and just take the money, the full-fledged money, the $20 or $30 versus the $10. Perceived value. Take it how you want. Believe it or don't believe it, but it works. I wouldn't have done my whole store based on that assumption. And, again, I know the results. I know what it gets us, and I know probably the vast majority of the time I'm selling it more than everybody else has sold, or at least the majority of other people have sold it for. I got that from somebody else. I've watched my competitors. I'm like, there's no way they're selling it for that, but sure enough, they were selling it for much more than we did, and, they were right. The other factors, the zoom-ins and the keywords, listing better items helps too. Not having a bunch of cheaper stuff in your store, it will help. If all your stuff in your store is at a certain level or higher, they'll again, it's a perceived value. You're not some lowball seller. You're not a discounter or like an outlet type of business. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but some collectors, that's a big difference. They think it's more of a knowledge base as well. The person would rather have better cards. I mean, they're looking for better cards. It'd be far easier for somebody to buy a $3 card at a flea market or at an antique mall than it would be to have to mess around and spend an hour looking for a $3 postcard on eBay. That's why the more expensive cards are usually the ones that sell for the most and more frequently. Because, again, anybody can get the $3 card. You can buy a lot of yourself, a buyer, and sort through and get rid of the rest of them at a show or something. So, anyway, we're going to let it go off on here. Yeah, Mr. Magazine does. I talked to Dave not too long ago, Papergoy, and I know that he bought a huge lot. Dave, I think, went with him the first shot. But anyway, we're going to let it go out there. Do apologize for the beginning here. Again, video's up. I'm going to check on, I should at least get through all of the emails. I think I had 4 emails left in Patreon and before the end of the night. And then we're going to watch a family Christmas movie tonight. So anyway, I hope everybody had a good day. Hopefully you enjoy the holidays. Stay safe with what's going on tonight. If you're there, you can see the snow in the background coming down now. But I do appreciate everybody, and I thank you very kindly.